How are you Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome to this week's installment of the artist interview series. Um, and today we have Sej Saraiya, an international photographer that we're going to talk about, and we're going to learn about her experiences. We're going to learn about her travels, and we're going to learn more about her as an individual. Sej, uh, I'm not gonna lie, that made me laugh. The music video, and then I was like, well, it's kind of dark near the end. I was like, oh, this is way darker than I think it should be, but like it gets really eerie. Right. Sej, how are you doing today? Can you hear me?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I am. Yes, I hear you just fine. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes. And you're doing just fine or really
Great.
well. What would make
really well?
What would it make it great? Like a notch or two above really well.
Good internet, maybe. No,
yeah,
I'm just joking.
Good internet.
I think it's a bad internet day for me. I'm up in Mount Shasta. I missed what you said. I'd like to apologize in advance for my bad internet.
Yeah, it is like the delay is extraordinary. So I'm like I'm trying to compensate for that. So, Sej, what tell me, like, what'd you do this morning? Like, what was your morning today? Like, what'd you do?
I'm in Mount Shasta, and I wanted to get a picture of the beautiful peak, the snowy peak in the morning with the lenticular clouds. And I went exploring with my car to find a good spot to get that shot. And the only place I found was on the side of the freeway. And so I pulled over on the side of the freeway, took my camera, and I climbed onto the roof of my car. And as I did that, I had this like really strong feeling that I was going to get like pulled over, like not pulled over. I was already pulled over. I knew that a cop was going to show up, and he did. So I got my picture, but it was fine. The cops up here are so wonderful. It's amazing. He was like, "Hey there." I was like, "Oh, is this okay? Is this okay that I'm doing this? I really want to get this shot." And he was like, "Well, it's not the safest way to do it." And he let me take the picture. But I mean, that's not the worst thing I've done to get pictures, but I knew that was going to happen. But that was my morning. My morning went in looking for a spot to find a good picture of Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta. Where is that at?
Oh, this is in Northern California by the border of Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how early was it when you went to Mount Shasta?
Oh, it wasn't that. It was like 7 a.m. ish.
Uh-huh.
And
is that a typical morning for you, like getting up to take photos?
Actually, no. I usually wake up around 6:30 in the morning and I meditate. I do my yoga and my meditation. Yes. That's a typical morning for me.
I'm encountering this a lot. Is this a movement that's going on? There's a lot of like meditation that I'm just hearing more and more about, and like I've talked to a few artists already, and they've talked about how they meditate, and maybe it's just like people feel less weird about saying that they do that, or like it was something that a lot of people did and I didn't know about, but people didn't want to talk about because they're like, oh, they're gonna think I'm weird if I tell them I meditate. So I don't know. Like, is that something that you feel like is a trend, or is it something that is becoming more open and accepted, like meditation?
It's definitely become more open and accepted, but I also think that a lot of people are doing it now. And,
Yeah.
maybe back in the day, people weren't aware of it, but
Hmm.
it's something it's definitely something it's a movement for sure. I don't think it's a trend because trends can die out. I think
Yeah.
meditation is here to stay. I
Yeah.
feel like people in my life who do meditation experience the shift, and so it's something they wouldn't it's something you get used to and becomes a part of your life.
Sage, how do you meditate? Like, how do you like run it through? Like, what's your way of meditating?
Well, I do my breath work every morning. So I do some breath work, and I do like a very light set of yoga stretches, and I practice transcendental meditation. So it's 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 a technique that is taught to you, and
Okay.
you just practice it the way it was taught.
What's like if you're going to give me uh 3 steps on how I could practice transcendental meditation, what would you say? What would you tell me to do?
I think I would say you would want to go learn it with a teacher, just because it's
Okay.
it's a very ancient Indian tradition that's been passed down
Okay.
from generations, like from masters from like thousands of years ago, and it's like an oral tradition. So you learn it from a teacher, and it's passed on to you, and that would be the best way to practice that. But there's a lot of other meditations too, like mindfulness meditations and you can do guided meditations too. So they guide you and they tell you what to do. That's also a great way to start.
What's a guided meditation? Is that like a
you know when you
class?
Yeah, it's like a class. It's online now because of COVID. It's available
Uh-huh.
everywhere. It's different types of guided meditations, but
Uh-huh.
you can find a good one online.
And how long do you meditate?
25 minutes.
25 minutes?
25
I
minutes in the
I
morning and then 25 evening.
Wow, wow, very good. I try to do it for 10 minutes. Like just to kind of close my mind from like just thoughts. I find that if
Yeah.
after I try if I try to I find if I try to go for longer than that, then I start thinking about other stuff like, oh gosh, I got all this stuff I got to do now. Oh, this 10 minutes is up. um, I'm
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it. But I'm not good at it at all. But I find that it helps at least calm me down. And kind
Yeah,
of prep me for
definitely.
the prime me for the day. I was finding that I do like stretching as well, but like just to kind of like touch my
Yeah.
toes. That's it. Um, so
Yeah.
25 minutes of transcendental meditation in the morning, and then do you have any like specific morning rituals outside of that, like a set habit that you
You
do?
know, I wake up with a lot of energy. So
Oh yeah,
for me, it's like my morning meditations are like, okay, once I'm done, I'm like ready to start with the day. I'm a morning person.
yeah.
And so by 2 p.m., I'm
Okay.
done with my day. Like I can't. So all my work happens in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Once in a while, I do hit the beach in the morning because I live 10 minutes from the beach, and I go for a jog or just sit by the ocean. But mostly mornings are work. I work in the mornings.
When
Yeah.
is your so like what would that entail? Like what would a typical day run for you? So we kind of established you wake up, you do your yoga, your meditation,
Yeah.
and then your mornings where you knock out all your really important tasks. So what
Yeah.
does that really entail? Like what's that mean?
You know, it's so funny. The reason I do yoga and meditation is because I don't have a typical day. A
Okay.
lot of my work involves a lot of travel. I don't have a steady life. So these are the two practices
Okay.
I have to keep myself grounded. These are the only two things that
Okay.
happen every day. But for example, when I'm in LA, it could be working on my business because I just started my art print shop recently. And so I'm working on expanding that business. I'm working on a documentary film, so something to do with that. I have like 7, 8 projects going on right now, and really depends on what I'm in the mood to do for that day or what I have scheduled that day. Sometimes I have shoots, so it's that, but my work involves a lot of travel. So
Oh,
typical days is not really a thing, although I do try to have a green smoothie every morning.
a green smoothie. What's that have? What's in it?
It's all the raw, like green good stuff. Like, okay, that's a lie. It's not really green stuff. I have bananas, I have apples, avocado, cucumber, and oat milk, a bunch of things like that. And yeah, it's just a nice, healthy drink to start my morning with.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So you're saying you're working on a documentary? That's exciting. How's that going?
Yes. Oh, wow. I mean, because of COVID, I can't shoot 10%. I've shot 90% of it. So I'm
Oh yeah.
pretty much done with all the shooting. I was supposed to go back to India this December and shoot more, like just the last 10%, but I can't do that because of COVID. And so I
Hmm.
think I'm going to work on the editing part. So that's what I'm working on right now, putting it
And
together.
how long is it like? So how much footage do you have? So and how much are you taking out? Like, how's that working for you? Like, how's that work? How many
Yeah,
hours are you putting
wow.
in just to kind of trim down?
I'm going to trim down a lot because
Oh
the
wow.
film is going to be about 85 minutes long, but the footage is so much longer. It's probably 2 hours worth of footage. So it's not that
Okay.
crazy, but oh, it's sorry, that's a lie. It's way more than two. It's like maybe 4 to 5 hours worth of footage.
Okay.
And so it's going to be a lot of trimming down for sure. But I have the script ready and I just have to really put it together.
What's it about?
It's wow, it's about these really, really amazing women from the deserts of India, from the western desert
Uh-huh.
of India. They used to be gypsies. Well, not gypsies. They used to be nomads, wandering nomads, and of a very low. So in India we have the caste system, which is really outdated, but it still exists. Like there are 4 different castes, and these women were considered to be of the lowest class, and the government didn't treat them well. The country people didn't treat them well, and it was a very patriarchal society, but they embraced this dance, this folk dance from their it's a long story, but they embraced a dance of the cobra and changed the entire patriarchal system into a matriarchal one, and really expanded through their art. They're true artists. They do nothing but art. It's really, really beautiful. They're very empowered women, and so it's like a story of how they came to where they are today. Yeah,
And how'd
and
you
then
find about how'd you
sorry.
yeah, we got this huge delay. How'd you find out about these this group of women?
So I've been traveling around the world, but especially around Asia for the last 5 years for my because I am mostly I do ethnographic photography, and on one of my journeys I met one of these women, and I was
Okay.
just so blown away by their power. They walk barefoot in the deserts of India with like pots of water on their head, and they walk with so much power. And I photographed them, and I wanted to go back and shoot them. And things just worked out in a way where I ended up going back to India and made a film on them.
And do you have a deadline for this? Do you have
Personal deadline,
a yeah that you're going to launch it and present it to the world?
March 2021.
All right. All right. Exciting. You should share that to me. You should
I
share that.
will.
So let's go back a couple decades. What was art to you as a kid? What was your relationship to art as a kid, Sage?
I think I was always an artist.
Okay.
I, for me, art was about creating this universe that kind of made the world a bearable place. I was a very shy and introverted child, And so I used to write poetry and stories since I was 7. And in my poetries and my stories, I used to create this world that I really wanted to live in. So, and then when I turned 10, my parents gifted me a camera, and then it was really writing and photographing became my thing. So I didn't really know, I didn't recognize it as art, but it was just who I was.
And what was the camera?
it was it was a Yashica camera. Do you know of
And what?
these?
I do not know. I know like 2 cameras. That's about it. I know negative. I know -5 cameras. I don't know anything about cameras. So
Okay.
what's a Yashica? What made it? Do you still have it?
I don't have it. I
Ah,
don't actually know anything about it. I don't even know where the model is from, where the camera is from. I There were 2 cameras back in the day, the Yashica and Minolta, and this was like in
okay.
India. So I this but
I know
yeah. So I had
Minolta.
it. I had Yeah. Oh, you do know Minolta. Okay.
I do know Minolta.
So yeah. So I yeah.
And when did it transfer over from like, oh, this is these are just images that I'm making. There's this is art that I'm actually creating here. When did that click? Like, how many years? What was it? Or like 20 days after you had your Yashica? Like, oh, this is art, right? No,
No, no, no, no, not at all. Actually,
no.
I didn't recognize myself as an artist at all until only maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
So
And
this
why is
was
that?
like, oh, I can't explain it, but especially in the world that I grew up in, or at least maybe the family I grew up in, science was a big thing. We were like very big on science. And so art was just something that happened, but it wasn't really well defined. And so
Hmm.
I naturally took the route of science and didn't understand that my passion lay in art until, honestly, when I started shooting the indigenous people about 10 years ago, I didn't even see that as art. It was really a journey that I took to explore a whole other way of living and a whole other way of being, and just a whole other world out there that I wasn't familiar with, because I
Hmm.
grew up in a big city. I grew up in Mumbai, which is a big city, and it's also the hub of the film industry. And we didn't have that connection with remote cultures. And I'm sorry, I'm digressing, but I was like in my early 20s in Los Angeles, and I went to this place called the Annenberg Space for Photography, which is closed now, but this wonderful Canadian ethnobotanist called Wade Davis was giving a lecture on remote cultures that he had seen around the world. And when I met him, I knew instantly that that's what I wanted to do, which was to go and visit these places and meet these cultures and learn from them, and just learn about this whole other way of being that was, that we had on this earth. And so when I started my journey to photograph them, I still didn't see it as art. It was really a journey of self exploration. And I learned so much about life from that journey that to see it as art was not something that I would even think about until a few years later when I had my first exhibition. And people came and they saw these pictures and they wanted to know more about these people. And I was like, wow, people are curious. Like, people want to learn, they want to know about worlds outside of their own. And that inspired me to do more exhibits. And that was when
Hmm.
people started buying them. And that's when I realized that it was art. So
Okay.
it didn't start off like that, but it took a while for me to understand that
What
as art.
what was it like the quote from I'm not don't this is not verbatim, but like the quote from Andy Warhol was like art is what you can get away with selling or something. It's something like that where you like it's art is what you can get away with or what you could sell and get away with. I don't know. That I'm probably messing up that quote. But so when you kind of validated it, right? Maybe
Yeah.
you sold these pieces and you're like, well, these weren't meant as objects of beauty or an artistic endeavor. They were it sounds like was it more like historical documentation, more like documentation?
For me, it wasn't that. No, that wasn't my
No?
initial intention at all. No, my initial
Okay.
intention really was to go visit these people and like be with them and learn from them. And it just so happened that I had intimate moments with them and I ended up taking pictures of them.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was never meant to be a documentation journey. It was more of a
Okay.
self-exploration journey that turned into a documentation journey.
So
And
these photos, go ahead, sorry.
no, and when, like you said, when the first time someone wanted to buy it from me, I felt really weird because it was
Mhm.
at an exhibition. We were at the Beatles ashram in Rishikesh, and a woman, what she wanted to buy it. She was Belgian, and I wanted to just give it to her for free. But then I had learned
Don't
from
do that.
artists. Yes, yes. I'd learned from artists that you never give anything away for free because the value of the things, people don't value it. People don't value what they don't pay for. And so I
Mhm.
sort of asked her for the money. And then as what I realized was that just her having this picture in her home, as she texted me later, was creating this conversation around these people. So now, like, these people were being discussed in Belgium. And
Mhm.
so that's what made me feel like, okay, this is the right thing to do because it's spreading knowledge around the world.
Yeah. And you're creating a dialogue uh, continentally,
Right.
intercontinentally around the
Yeah.
world. Um, Sage, would you like to share some of these and talk about them? Because we this is a new setup. We got you set up a little PDF, a little like PowerPoint for us to kind of show in the live stream. Would you like to talk about them?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about them. And then all these questions I have here, I don't even care. We'll just throw those away.
Oh no,
I'm
don't
kidding.
throw
I dropped them on the floor.
it.
And
Bring it back.
no, we'll come back to it maybe. I'm gonna add this to the
Okay.
stream, and I want you to talk about some of this because
Okay,
I don't want to be
cool.
like, let's rewind back to the part where you were talking about how you traveled around the world and you were doing a self-exploration journey. Even though we're talking about something completely different and it's 30 minutes ahead from now, we don't want to do that. We're at that point and we have it all queued up. So I'm gonna put this in the stream, and you're gonna
Okay.
talk about certain ones that you want to bring to light. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So
Okay.
you got the podium here. So what do we have here?
Okay. Do you see it clearly or do I need to move the screen?
I see it clearly. You probably can
Okay, great.
open. You can probably make the window the entire thing.
Does
Is the
this
window?
does this make it entire?
There we go.
Oh,
Oh
great.
yeah, there we
Okay,
go.
awesome. Okay, great. All right. Wow, this guy, he's one of my favorites. Should I talk about him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is a portrait of a headhunter from northeast of India in a very, very remote region in Nagaland. And it was quite a journey to get to them. I'm not going to get into that, but I would love to talk a little bit about them. So this man right here is actually between the age of 85 and 95. And
Uh-huh.
there's like maybe about 50 or 60 of them. Okay, I'm going to go back. These men used to hunt heads until only about 70 years ago, maybe 100 years ago. And uh, people are really afraid of them. When they hear the word headhunter, they're like, whoa, that's crazy. But the reality is that they live in the mountain in a very, very remote region. And they used to have people from other tribes come and either steal their women or try to steal their land. And the way they would deal with that was by hunting heads, and they would cut the head of the invader and hang it on their head, on their doors, to scare the enemy away.
I would
And
do it.
eventually, right. I mean, honestly, after I met them and heard their stories, I was like, okay, it doesn't sound that bad. I mean, they didn't know what else to do, and they do regret it now. The missionaries came and they converted them, and they told them, they banned all those practices. And so these men, this is how they look, by the way. This man hasn't gotten ready for a photo shoot. This is just how they dress, and this is how they are. And yeah, and they shared stories from their childhood, and they were giggling. It was really sweet the way they giggled and told me the stories. But the reality is they do feel bad about it. And there's very few of them that remain, because the younger generations obviously don't hunt heads anymore. But the best part is what the matter of pride for them was, I don't know if you can see their faces clearly and their chest, but the queen used to tattoo their chests herself.
Yeah.
Every time a man had hunted a certain number of heads, and every tattoo, it has its own symbolism. So this is really historical. All these tattoos and on their faces, on their chest, they all speak a lot. And these are the last few men that actually have all of this, because the younger generations don't have this anymore. So that's the short story about the headhunters. Yeah, I'm gonna.
That So what were they when they were talking the stories with each other and giggling? Was it were they stories that were actually, if taken out of context, would be kind of scary, like head chopping stories?
Yeah. I think so. I think that's a lot of indigenous cultures. They have that. They have that risk of people chopping up stories and just sharing the part which grabs attention. Because I remember when I was there sitting in the room with all these headhunters, there were a lot of tourists that came. And there's a whole tourism around this. And they came, and they didn't even attempt to talk to them or find out anything about them. And they just had these cameras around their necks, and they snuck some shots, and then they left. And I know that they're going to go back and talk about, oh, these are crazy headhunters, and they used to hunt heads. But really, I think with indigenous people, it's really important to know the whole story, because there's a reason behind the things that they did.
Yeah. It wasn't just for fun, then it's not
right. It wasn't.
They wake up I want to go chop some heads off. See you later. Come back at 5 for dinner or whatever. I don't know. That joke that failed. So what else?
Yeah, and I mean, and then you have, it's it's a mountain which is separating India from Myanmar, which is the neighboring country, and you can't go from one side of the mountain to the other side. But I had to take the whole circle and a flight and a train and cars and get to the other side. And it's so strange, because right on the other side of the mountain, I met these women.
Oh, yeah?
So these are, I'll go to her first. So these are tattooed-faced women. So those were the tattooed-faced headhunters, but these are the tattooed-faced women of the Chin Mountains of Myanmar, which is a completely different country, but neighboring country. So their story is that these are also the last women who are tattooed, because it's been banned. They can't do that anymore. But the reason was these women were incredibly beautiful, as you can see. And so the king would steal them and keep them as concubines. And so what they used to do was tattoo their faces to also show, number one, what tribe they belong to, and also to sort of mark them to, in a way, kind of take their beauty away.
Oh, wow.
So these are the women. They have different types of tattoos. So if you look at these women, their faces are completely tattooed, all over. It's dot, dot, dot. And then you go to the next woman, and they have these symbolisms. Again, it's a totem. It's it stands for the moon and the stars. So their faces are tattooed with the moon and the stars because that's what the tribe wanted to do. That's what they believed in. And then this is the same woman as before, and the same tattoo. So there's like five to six different tribes, but they have distinct tattoos. And which brings me to the next image, which is also very interesting. Now, this is back in India. It's again the Northeast, but now these women also have tattoos on their faces. You can't see it on this woman because she's so old, and the tattoo has faded by now. But what she has in her nose are bamboo plugs. And so when these girls were born, their noses were plugged with bamboos for the same reason, which was to take away their beauty so that people from the tribes from neighboring mountains wouldn't come and steal them because they were so incredibly beautiful. And so it seems like there's this theme of making the woman look a certain way or taking away her beauty so she wouldn't be kidnapped. And I was very surprised to see that in like different countries, and very, very similar, very similar theme in different countries. So that's about these women. But these people, these are the Apatani people of Northeast India, and their story is fascinating. They live in this valley, which is so remote and so far away from the rest of the world, but their agricultural practices is really top notch. So they first they grow their grow their rice, their paddy, without the use of pesticides, without the use of machinery, without the use of bullocks. It's like grown with the help of fish. So they have paddy come fish, which means they have fish in the fields, which take care of all the things. Basically, they take care of. I don't need to get into that, but the point is that if you look at all their agricultural practices, they're just very environmentally friendly. Every single house of the Apatani people has its own kitchen garden, for example. So they don't have like mass production of stuff, but every house has its own kitchen garden. So my point is that I really enjoyed spending time with this tribe because they are just so aware. For a tribe that lives so remote, they were so tuned in, and they use natural herbs that grow locally to heal whatever sicknesses they have. And so this is about the Apatani people. If you have any questions, Matt, or else I'll keep going.
Are they still doing that practice of shoving bamboo sticks in the nose?
It's been banned. All of these are the last generation people. This is banned. They don't do this anymore. They still have all the amazing agricultural practices and earth-friendly practices, but none of this happens anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Because
okay,
they're almost like they can, I don't know, I'm trying to word this so it doesn't sound bad, but I'm very bad with tact and vernacular. I think like they almost become like symbols of the past, maybe, where like because it's from a time where things were where that's just what happened. If you were born at that time in that country, and you happen to be a woman, you'd get a bamboo stick shoved in your nose. Did they make them larger as they grew older, or is they like that? Was it?
No, they made them larger as they grew older. So the young girls would only have like this thin stick.
Yeah.
That's
not. I'm like, it sounds painful.
Yeah, it sounds painful, but I mean, this woman was phenomenal. She was. They're happy. They're very happy people.
Yeah.
Like when I went to photograph her, she was out drinking with her girlfriends. She's 85 or something, but she was out drinking with her girlfriends, and so they know how to live a life.
Yeah. By all
Yeah.
means, show some more. You have a whole queue of images. I want to see some more. And you said you had a lot of
Okay,
stories, so it's
so
been interesting.
I do have stories. I'm not sure if I want to get into this one because it's a little bit of a sad story. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen these women, the Kayan
I've s-
women.
I've seen the
Yeah,
the
you
the
must have.
the, the ring
Yes,
the
ring.
rings.
Right. So, yeah, I took these pictures in Myanmar, but in reality, these Burmese women are taken to Thailand. And there's like a whole little village that's been made in Thailand where you can go see these women and take pictures of them. And when I heard about it, it made me really sad. I've never been to this village in Thailand, but I mean, I would really love for it to end because they've made a zoo out of it. And I see
They're
that a lot. Like
they're
it's like
still
a
doing
zoo.
the ring thing.
That they're still doing the ring thing because it's a big tourism industry now in Thailand.
Ooh, oh
So
man.
like people just come to the village and take pictures of these women and they pay an amount for it. And it's wrong.
So the practice is being done strictly because it's become a tourist attraction.
That's what I'm aware of from talking to these women in Myanmar, which is where they are from and they go back to. Um, there's no zoo there, but yes, this. Although the younger girls that I met, they had fake rings around their neck, like not
Mm,
you could just like clip it off. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that something's happening and it's changing, but I'm aware of the fact that this industry is still very much alive in Thailand.
And correct me if I'm wrong. They once it gets to a certain length, they can't take that off anymore, can they?
Oh, you can't. No, they can't take this off.
Like I don't
I
know.
mean,
It just separates the spine, and they lose that muscle to sustain that neck.
so that's what I learned from one of the older women that I talked to in Burma is that it becomes a support.
Okay.
So it's like they don't take it off.
Yeah, yeah. It comes like that external brace to become dependent on it because they haven't
Yes.
utilized those muscles for so long, you know.
Yeah, that's what I've understood from my broken conversation because I don't speak Burmese, but I'm hoping it's wrong, false, but I know I think that's what it is. I think they can't take it off.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay, and then I'm not sure. Oh, uh I can talk a little bit about this culture. It's really interesting culture actually.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll share a quick story about this culture and we can stop there actually. So this is this tiny little village in Indonesia called Tanah Toraja. And they have a really fascinating death ritual. They just have a very fascinating belief system around death, which I found to be very enlightening because, okay, I'm going to make this minimal. Okay. So for the Thanatarajans, they believe that that death is a part of life. Like and in a way that you wouldn't even, not the way we say it, like we all love to say it, but they actually live it, which means that when someone in their family dies, they don't call them the dead one, they call them the sleeping one. And they keep them in these little homes called the Tonkonan. So you have the
Mhm.
dead body lying in the Tonkonan, and you have the kids like walking around the dead body, and you have the parents and the children coming and seeing the dead grandparent and drinking coffee in the same room, and they talk to them, they hang out with them. It's like a normal thing. And the funeral can take forever. Like it could take 2 to 3 years even, because one of the most important aspects of the funeral is a buffalo. It's a buffalo. They have to sacrifice a buffalo because they believe that the buffalo will take the deceased person into the afterlife, like take them safely into the afterlife, which is called the puya. And it's very expensive. A buffalo is very expensive in Tanataraja. So they keep them here for like days and years until they acquire the buffalo. And when they finally do acquire the buffalo, they have this gigantic feast, this like big celebration where they call the entire village and they like feed them and everything. Everyone's really happy and they celebrate the death. And then the body is put in these caves, these these rock caves, and outside those caves are little effigies of what the person used to look like, right? So you have these bodies in there, you have the effigies, and now that's not enough. Every 3 years, they bring the body out, they put on clothes on them, like stick a little cigarette or something on their into their mouth, they have the cap on, and then they parade them around town to sort of like take them around town. And so when you go here, when you go to this village and you experience this whole way of looking at death, it's really easy to not feel afraid of death anymore, because they have so accepted it as a part of life. They even like the way they interact with the dead one is like such a normal thing that when I was there and I was in this cave right here, which is filled with dead bodies and coffins, you can go really deep into these caves and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
dead bodies and coffins. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid, because death doesn't have this like dark energy or dark idea surrounding it because of the way they view it. And so that was really interesting to me, because where I'm from in India, we have the Aghoris, which is uh, like they are basically a kind of sadhus who have given up on all the material possessions of life, and they basically own nothing, they wear nothing except for the ash of dead bodies. So all the white stuff on their bodies are like it's ash from dead bodies. And they also live very close to death. I'm not going to get into their practices because, you know, i I wouldn't like people talking about it in a bad way, but they have practices which show you that they're also very, very comfortable with death. And the reason they do this is because they want to uh, they want to not be scared of death. They want to accept it as a part of life. And so it was very fascinating for me to see how these things exist in so many different parts of the world. Like this is Mexico. This is like this little town in the Chiapas in southern Mexico. And they have, you know, about the Mexican Day of the Dead, right? The
Yes.
Dia de Muerte. This is Dia de Muerte. So this is kind of the same. Like they're celebrating death. And so yeah, I wanted to show how there's all these cultures around the world that view death so differently from the way most of us do. So
And
yeah, yeah.
are those some of the more unique cultures that you experienced that have an, an, a different view, a perspective on death, or do you have any other ones that you have experienced that
No,
have
I
like a
no, I think these are some of the unique cultures that I experienced, where I saw the way they interacted with death was very different from the way most of us do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how often do you travel like around the world? What what sets the stage to where you go? Let's just go with how often you travel, and then we go to what sets the stage.
Okay.
Where do you plan on going? You know, like what
So
starts that?
okay, so initially when I started, it was like 10 years ago, but I was only doing it maybe 3 times a year. And then in like 2 years ago, no, 6 years ago, I traveled full time for a total of 3.5 years or 4 years, full time. So I was on the road the whole time in Asia. And now I only travel with a purpose.
Okay.
So, like, for example, if I'm making the film on these Rajasthani women, I go to India and I shoot for the film. I don't do that kind of traveling anymore. But like I said, back then it was more of a self exploration journey. And it just resulted in me meeting with all these indigenous people for that purpose and ending up taking intimate portraits of them. So I can't answer that question as like one thing, because it's been stages.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say it was a full-time travel for 4 years.
And I'm sorry. What's next? Like, what do you have down the pipe? Because you said you had a few things. You're working on like 70. You're juggling like 70 things. You have your documentary, and then what else are you working on?
Two different films at the moment also.
So two are those documentaries or
Like short films.
okay, short films?
No, those are just fiction short films. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm working on those at the moment. I'm working on the documentary, and then I'm doing this print shop, and I continue doing a lot of landscape photography because that's how I started my photography 10 or 15 years ago when I arrived in the United States, and I was traveling around the United States, and I was like, wow, the landscape here is just so magical. And so I started off with landscape, and so that's something I continue to do. It's something that's been, you know, always there.
And what are some habits?
So that's why. Oh, and yes,
No, no, go
sorry,
ahead. Go in your what are you going to say?
I forget.
So what are some habits that you have as a photographer that have helped you along the way?
uh, are we talking about remote or are we talking about landscape? Because it would be very different for each.
Like what do you mean? Like what are some okay, so we talked about how you have those the yoga and the meditation as a habit, right? That's like the
Yeah.
thing that's constant throughout your life at the moment. Um, so those are habits, and so are they? You have two different sets of habits for both.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
with landscape, for example, okay, yeah. I'll start with landscape and then
Yeah.
I'll go on to remote. So with landscape, I don't know if well, yes. So I make it a point to create new landscape photographs every month. So that's something that I have to do. Keep that going. And I don't know if is that answering your question? Is that what you're asking me?
Sort of. So maybe you are forcing yourself to be have more variety. Um, with each
Yeah.
month for
With
your
yeah,
landscapes. And what about
yeah.
the other genre of photography?
The remote cultures,
Yeah.
with remote cultures, like I wouldn't call it a habit, but a practice that I
Okay.
had was that I have to spend enough time with them before I get portraits of them. Like
Okay.
I have to get enough information on them and get really close to them and really get yeah, for me it's very important to know them, know someone before I'm taking portraits of them so that I'm not passing on any false information. And yeah, and basically that's a practice. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. With habit, I'm not exactly sure what you mean.
It's like so for me, like I would in order for me to get things done, I make a habit of drawing every day in the morning, regardless of whether how I feel or whether or not it's going to be good. Or yeah, so it's regardless of how I feel, there's always going to be drawing involved. So I set up a morning habit, morning ritual of drawing in the morning, just like you set up a morning habit and ritual of meditating and doing yoga, right? So that there's something that is normal and that will yield something. Um, so maybe you so like maybe the getting to know the person that you are going to take a photograph of is really important because that way you can get the essence of the person so you can so that you can feel that when you take a photograph of them that you're going to get them in the best light, you know. Maybe that might be the reason why you speak with them for a longer time. I don't know. um,
Yeah.
so when you take a photograph of a portrait, like a portrait photograph, um, what are some of the like things that you're doing? Like, are you setting up specific lighting? I noticed that a lot of them are in like a black background. Is that like what is that? Is that like an actual black like
That's a great question.
Yeah, because I'm very I
No,
like
that's a
always see
great
those
question.
photos and I'm like see photos of like this high contrast and I always wondered how did these photographers get this high contrast and then and make the character the person feel like they're actually coming out of the darkness, you know?
Yeah. Um, so some I have different practices that I usually have them stand by the door of their homes because their homes are not usually lit. They have natural sunlight coming in. And so when I pose them at their doors, the back is completely black. That's one of the ways. But the ones in which you see a completely black background, so I carry around this black muslin cloth with me when I travel. And for example, let's look at this one. Hold on. So this man, so this is, she's just at her door.
Oh, so that's
So
a
you
door.
can't, that's a door. She's just at her door. But like he's at the door too. And the only person you can see is this other woman. But for this guy, um, I carry around this black muslin cloth when I travel because I only have a backpack. So I can't really travel with backgrounds and stuff. But I just find some village kids, you know, from the same village, just some kids or like nephews and stuff, and I just have them hold the black cloth for me behind them and I take a picture, you know. So I guess like when you're going to very remote places where you don't even know how you're going to get there, you sometimes have to be really innovative. Like here, I'm going to show you a picture of myself on the back of a ginger truck. No, it's a turmeric truck. So that's me right there on the top of turmeric sacks of turmeric, because the only way to get to, sorry, I'm like scrolling a lot, but the only way to get to this woman was on the back of a truck, because there's absolutely no transportation that goes to their village, like no public transportation. Like the truck had to cross a river. It just like the truck crossed the river, and so you don't have buses or taxis that would go there. And so I was on the back of a turmeric truck, so you can't really carry much, and so I just get innovative with the
Yeah.
equipment that I have. Yeah.
Do you take a lot of photos at once, or is it like only a few, right? Because I'm imagining it's not like a photo shoot where you're like, stay here for a couple hours. I'm going to keep taking the photos until I get the good one.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I take landscape photos, I take a lot of photos to the point where I
Okay.
come back home and I'm like, oh my goodness, why did I do that? You know, I have that. But with these people, I don't, I you don't have that luxury, and I don't want to make them
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I feel like the first two shots are always the best because they're not conscious, not feeling self-conscious yet. So no,
Yeah.
with the people, no, I don't take too many photographs.
And how many when you're doing landscapes, how many photos are you taking? Are you
Oh
taking a
my
couple hundred a
God.
day?
Oh, wow. Like, for example, if I'm shooting the Milky Way, I know that I'm not going to be able. So, okay, I'm going to hold on. I'll just go here.
Are you going to show me space?
Yeah, I'm going to show you space.
I'm
So
seeing
I took
space.
this. So this shot was taken in a very sacred place in India. Like it's a very sacred place to a lot of Indian people. It's the mouth of the river Ganga. It's where the Ganges originates, and so it was 4,000 meters high. It was -3 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit. And I was shooting at night, and there was snow, and it was just really cold, and I just kept taking shots all night because I knew that I wouldn't be able to really see them until I went back home, which would take me another 5 days to hike back down. And so there
Oh
are
wow.
moments like these when I just take a lot of shots because I don't know how they're going to turn out because I don't have the luxury to put them on a camera yet. So landscapes tend to be like hundreds for sure.
And you do you do a lot of camping when you do those shoots?
Yes, a lot of camping. I feel like the some of the best shots are when you go to really remote places and I don't know, see like rivers and waterfalls that haven't been touched much. Something
What are
beautiful about that.
what are some camping tips that you could give?
Wow. Well, travel light, first of
Okay.
all. Always keep your food. Well, it depends on where you're camping, but if you're camping around wild animals, you want to make sure you keep your food in like bear-proof containers, so you don't have
Yeah, yeah.
bears and coming in, like breaking into your car or breaking into your, wherever you've kept your food, for sure. Um, Definitely have a flashlight. 100% have a flashlight. Have a bottle of water, which is those pills which purify water, so that
Yeah.
you can drink from the rivers. Um, I don't know, just like basically be electronic free and camp is some of
Do
the
you
advice.
have
Have good boots. Yeah.
do you have those that like those like pump water filters that you can clean out your water that
Yeah.
way? Use those.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I use those.
does the those pills make the water taste different? Like what's that do?
Um, it's supposed to like kill the like E. coli. It kills E.
Yeah.
coli. Stuff like that. It kills those harmful bacteria. It's meant to kill the harmful bacteria. I wouldn't drink water from just anything. I would usually drink water from running rivers and waterfalls
Hmm.
and like springs. Um, I do not drink. I don't. I'm not that rough it out person, but you have those Bear Grill videos where he shows how when you're stuck in the wild, you can have harness water on top of a leaf through dewdrops and then like collect it in a cup and drink that as water. I don't do stuff like that. So yeah, it doesn't make it taste better, but it kills the harmful stuff for sure.
Someone told me just typed up that you use sand to clean your plate. It's on the comment section
Yes,
right next to you. Yeah.
that's 100% true. Wow, yes. When I was in, who said this? Katrina.
You,
Oh yeah,
you got some people.
yeah. You know, uh, there's when we were in Rajasthan, we were camping out in the desert. Like it's a really vast desert in
Hmm.
Jaisalmer, and we had nothing on us. We just had our camels and some food. And yeah, you just put sand on the plates, and it takes away all the oil, and you eat the next day or the next meal on the plate, and you're fine. Yeah, sand
What's
is a
some of
great way to clean plates for sure.
what's some of the longest like camp outs that you've had to endure to take photos?
Oh, the longest camp out to take photos, I would say it was that the journey to the origination of the the Ganga, the river Ganges. That was the longest for sure. I mean, I've camped for way longer. I've camped for weeks, but this one felt like the longest just because of the conditions. Apart from other
Mm.
places like in Oregon and stuff, it just feels like pleasure. It's fun, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I lost all my words. Here we are.
Okay.
Sage, do you have any advice they can give to artists that goes beyond like follow your dreams? You know, um,
Yeah.
where it's just like because I like so imagine. Have you ever seen the movie Shrek?
Yes.
Where the Shrek says he's like an onion and he's got he's got layers.
Layers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then Donkey's like, have you ever had a parfait? And is like, parfait's got layers too. Um, so what are some advice you? Oh, we got some questions already. We'll answer this question after you answer the question right here, which is even better.
Okay. Okay.
So, can you tell us about your journey to the Gan Ganges source?
Oh, when you
Is that how you
camped
pronounce it?
and traveled on foot? Yeah, the Ganges source when you camped and traveled on foot to get that picture. Well, okay. So it's not really such a long journey, to be honest. It's maybe a 2-day journey into the wild where you're walking with nothing around you. And it's only a 2-day journey, but it ended up being a 10-day journey for us. I was with a bunch of friends because we just loved walking around. There's a pleasure in walking by a river and just following the path of the river and walking along the river to its source and then walking back. It's something magical about that. And just seeing the river change its form, because when she starts, she's this like really calm river, and then she goes through canyons and it's wild and it's calm again. And so it ended up being a 10-day journey for us because we just really enjoyed walking by the river, and it was so magical and beautiful, and the landscapes were changing. And it was very challenging. But the most fascinating thing that I noticed was that there were women from India in their saris and in sandals walking at 4,000 meters in the snow to the source of the Ganges. And there were these sadhus, like the holy men, who would have nothing on them except for this thin orange cloth and crux. So like the hold crux. And so there was all of us with all our Columbia gear and like North Face gear and all our amazing boots and backpacks, all set to like get to the glacier. And all these local people from India, from all over India, were walking in sandals. And I really realized the power of faith. They were their goal was so much about getting to the glacier that they were walking in sandals. That was something I could never get over, because how do you walk in sandals in freezing temperature and snow and not have your toes fall off? So that was fascinating. I have a picture, unfortunately, it's on this slideshow that I've created, but yeah, you can go on my website and check it out. So that's my answer to that question.
Have you ever?
What was your question?
Oh, I'm going to ask a different one. Have you heard about the Buddhist monks that they can go out into like freezing degree weather and not feel a thing? Their body heat increases exponentially. Like they can.
Right. 100%.
I've heard stories where they would have assistants. They go out and they'd have assistants literally douse their body in water in the freezing weather, and you could see the water steaming off the body.
Yeah, I absolutely know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very fascinated by all of that as well, but I'm aware that the Buddhist monks practice meditation on a daily basis, and they have these certain practices in which they have trained their body. But to see ordinary people do that, it's like, wow, as human beings, we have a lot of capacity that we are not aware of, that sometimes when you're traveling and you see that and you're like, wow, you can actually do that.
Yeah. That's that was I don't know how I stumbled onto that. I think I was just browsing through the YouTube, and this like it popped up somehow about some one thing on monks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have any advice you can give to artists that goes beyond follow your dreams, do what you love, etc.?
I do actually, and I feel very strongly for it, but it might come out very cliche because it's really based on what you're saying, telling me not to say. But but really, I've come to realize that, I think as artists, if we really stay true to what we believe in and what we feel from within us, then that art is very required in the world. Like, I feel that as artists, we have that responsibility, and not just responsibility. I was sharing this with someone recently, that as artists, we have the power to penetrate the consciousness of men and women in a way that nothing else does. Like, you can have a lot of you can have revolution, and you can have people fighting for things on the street, whatever, I forget the word for it, like just fighting for what you believe in, right? You can have a lot of those activism. You can have a lot of activism, but it can, sometimes activism and stuff like that can push people away and push people in the opposite direction. But I feel that art has that power to penetrate human beings' consciousness to a really deep level. And so we have that power to create change in the most subtle way possible. And so, like, I feel like an artist should never think that what they're doing is not important. Because I think all art that is created is going to change someone. Art naturally has that power. And so I feel like, because I remember the first short film that I made, it was such a silly, dumb idea that I had with my partner while we were driving to this Airbnb. And I was like, oh man, why don't we make a film out of this? And it took us like 15 minutes to shoot and like maybe another half a day to edit. And we sent it out to film festivals, and suddenly it was winning awards. And like, people were coming up to and talking to me, and they were like, wow, that film was like, it really made me think. And I was like, wow, that's actually, I don't want to say this on on camera, but it really felt like, oh, that was one of the most like non-important things that I made. It was just making it for fun. And that's when I realized that all art is important, and that as artists, we need to embrace that the art we create is important, because artists don't get that encouragement, and that we don't get that validation often. It's not like at the end of your art, you have like a $600 paycheck waiting for you. When you create that art, you're really creating for yourself, and so we don't get that validation while creating. But so my advice would be that create and know that it's important, and that put it out there, because it's almost selfish to not put your art out there and think of yourself as, oh, I'm not such a good artist, because that's a very normal feeling for most of us. And we don't want to put stuff out there, but it's almost selfish not to put your stuff out there. So that, I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that was not cliche, but that would be my advice.
Yeah. The Sona put it quite, has a quote there that's pretty, hits it, puts the nail in the head. Like it's pretty true. Like it's often the most simple things, right? Where you spent 15 minutes recording something, but it resonated because maybe because it was honest, right? And like there's some honesty to it. It was very natural and organic, and maybe that resonated with the people that were watching that film or watching that video, that little short that you made. That's probably why it won rewards. Sometimes like people can see see through like the veil of fake. Like a lot of those like Instagrammers on like, look at me, I'm doing so good. I got my what airplanes are there? Like G6s? They're like private airplanes. Are they G7s? Are there G7s now? I know there's G5s.
G7? I'm not sure.
I don't know. You just what you do is it's a private airplane. All you got to do is put it. It's you just have the letter G, and you put a number right after it, and then that's an airplane now. So like I got all, or they show their money, like they go to their bank and they pull out all the money in ones, like this is, I'm doing so well. But that's like all they have in their bank account, right? And like, you're faking it. Stop doing that. And so like that Airbnb won some awards. What awards did it win?
Oh, it was just like best experimental film and like best editing.
So multiple
stuff like
awards?
that.
Multiple awards?
Yeah.
And how'd you feel after that? Like, how'd that feel when you won those awards for something that you thought were like just like to be like they were just a lark? Like, let's just submit this and see what happens.
No, really, that was my moment. I was like, wow, artists have the power to like make change. Because I had people coming up to me and telling me stuff that they realized or whatever. And then I was like, And that's when I realized that, wow, as artists, we tend to put our work down always, and because we don't always get external validation because we haven't put it out yet. And so that's when that was my moment of realization that, okay, you create art and you put it out there, and yeah.
Sej, what is a dream project that you want to do?
That's a great question. Wow. I really enjoy working with powerful women. And so my dream project would be, I have two dream projects. One of them is, I have two dream projects. One of them is like just this magical beautiful film about all these women, all these women that I don't have a concept yet, which is why it's a dream project. It's just this, I want to make this film or a photo series or some sort of story to share with everyone in just 2 hours, everything about the power of women around the world, so that women can embrace that within themselves. So that's one of them. And the second one is, I have this feature film script that I've written that I don't want to actually discuss. I shouldn't have brought it up, but because it's like being
It's documented now. It's here.
Oh, it's fine. No, what I mean is that's my second dream project, this feature film that yeah.
Are you going to crowdfund it, or are you going to send it to some studios, like the scripted studios?
I think crowdfund it. I really enjoy making things myself. Studio, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of brains that go in and like a lot of changes happen. And by the time it comes out, it's not the same anymore.
For sure.
Sure. I don't appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you wrote this down? Do you have a little dream journal?
Script?
No,
Ooh, I don't have a dream journal.
Maybe you should write those two, the first two dream goals.
I mean, I could not forget it. It's
movie?
like, yeah.
What?
I couldn't forget. These are my dream thoughts. So like they're like all over.
Okay. So you got two dream projects. You've already started one with you have the script. What phase is it in?
It's done. It's ready.
Oh, it's done. Well, where's your crowdfund page or GoFund? What pages are there? GoFundMe? I know there's Patreon, and I know there's Buy Me a Coffee, GoFundMe.
Ooh. Yeah, there's Kickstarter.
Oh, Kickstarter's one. Yeah, so you got 4. There's 4. I don't know if like Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee are in the same type of field as GoFundMe and Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter and GoFundMe are more towards those type of projects, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But like I know, like Buy Me a Coffee's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Give me a donation, and then Patreon's like the same thing, but Patreon gives you like like if you are this, they have like tiers, and so if you pay this month, you get to see my process video. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you gonna start doing that soon?
I actually have trouble asking for money from strangers. So I want to do it. I've been pushing it.
Have you thought about doing an auction? Like selling your some art prints or some photos as an auction
idea.
And there's like a little like a fundraising auction that could.
That's a great idea.
Like give you some capital if you're like worried about people giving you money,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so that might be something to consider. So you have. Someone asked for you to link to your crowdfunding page. I don't know if you have one, so that means you need one.
I don't have one yet, but I will. I need one.
So already you need a crowdfunding page for your videos. Okay, so we've already established that there's a want and a need for it, and we already established that you already have one backer. So
Yeah.
That's going to be, and this is documented. Sage is going to make a GoFundMe page or a Kickstarter page or one of those other pages. So yeah, those are some really big goals, and I believe you can do it. Right? You've done some crazy
Thank
stuff.
you.
Like I
Thank
think it's like not
you.
crazy, but like this, like go traveling around the world. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. To take photographs and do what
Yeah.
you love. And this morning you were on top of a car.
I was, and I got chided by a cop.
Yeah, you were on top of a car this morning, and you were taking photos. And that was is that a typical morning, or is that atypical?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when I'm shooting, 100%. I'm doing things like that all the time when I'm shooting. Yes.
Cops
Yeah.
always
I
ask you what you're
trespass.
doing.
I do things like that.
You trespass?
Not always, but
Uh-oh.
well, I don't trespass private property and stuff. Like, I'm not a bad person, but sometimes I just have to, I might have to like cross some boundaries to get a shot. I think photographers do that. I think it's a normal thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm running out of questions, Sage.
Okay.
I'm running out of them. I'm low on questions here. But I have one. And
Okay.
I have one question. What's your favorite dessert?
Ooh, wow. I love tiramisu.
Tiramisu. Do you have a place do
Yeah.
you get it at? Do you make your own?
No, I've never made my own. Never. No.
Okay.
There was a place I remember when I ate it and I was like, oh my God, this is the best tiramisu I've ever eaten. I don't remember what it was or where it was. Probably in Santa Barbara, actually. I think it was in Santa Barbara. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's kind of sad. I don't remember where it was.
Okay, Sage. I was kidding. That wasn't the serious question. The question I want to ask is, do you have any do you have any life advice that you could give to the viewers here? Something that you could share that you feel to be a good like code to go by, something that you believe in your deepest hearts to be universally true and has helped you in your life.
Wow. Yeah. I might have to think about that, but from the top of my head, I would say, let me think about this actually. I mean, there's one that's like really in my head right now, which is stopping all the others from coming because I can get really deep with this topic. I love talking about stuff like this. But the one I think about right now is learn to say no. Say no. Say no when you have to say no, and it's okay to say no. So that's the one that's in my head right now. So that's the one I would give.
When's the most recent time you said no? Like, and what was it for? Like something like, was it a big thing or is it a small thing? Was it this morning when the cop? was it this morning when the cop was like, "Get off that car"? You're like, "No."
In a way, I did because I did take my shot. So
No, what's a project you said no to?
What's a project I said no to?
Yeah.
I mean, I found myself saying no a lot often lately. I just say no to a lot of people when something goes against my value system. I've finally learned to say no. So yeah, I've been saying no a lot lately. I've been saying no and pushing out everything that does not belong. And I feel like that is helping a lot because it's making space for things that do belong to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sage?
Yeah, sometimes as artists, like it's easy to feel afraid and be like, oh, I'm going to, yes. To like say yes to everything because you're afraid of, I don't know, you're
Rejection.
afraid of like not having enough, sort of. Yeah. But it's really powerful to say no because it really does make space for stuff that belongs. So that's that's what I would say.
Sej, where can people find you and get in contact with you?
Facebook, Instagram, and my website, but mostly Facebook.
Under what handles?
It's Sej Saraiya. You can look up this name right here on Facebook, Instagram, and and people will find me there.
Sej, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences with me and talking about your travels. I really do appreciate it, and it was really nice talking to you.
Thank you, Matt. Likewise.
Yes,
this was fun.
And for those that are watching, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the like. I would say this doesn't happen, but it happens all the time. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I really do appreciate your support, and it's website. Okay. What's your website?
I can type that in. I'll type it in.
You can type it? Yes, you could type it in. Thank you very much, everyone. Please hit the subscribe button. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And Sej, you have a wonderful day. We're going to give a moment for Sej to reply to one of our viewers here. And then we're going to end the live stream. There's a private chat. Oh, there we go. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. We all appreciate you. And let's hit the fun little video here.